Welcome. Today we explore the core theoretical perspectives that continue to shape sociological inquiry into stratification. We begin with functionalist theory, which conceptualizes stratification as a necessary mechanism to motivate individuals to fill different positions in society. Functionalists argue that this system promotes social order by allocating rewards based on merit and contribution. However, research critiques highlight its tendency to legitimize inequality and obscure systematic power imbalances. Next, Marx's theory offers a critical approach, viewing stratification primarily through the lens of economic class conflict. It emphasizes how the ownership of production and exploitation underpin social inequalities. Contemporary scholarship expands Marxism by examining cultural hegemony and the role of ideology in maintaining class dominance. Max Weber's multidimensional framework adds nuance by incorporating status and political power alongside economic class. His perspective allows researchers to analyze how these intersecting dimensions create complex patterns of inequality. Intersectionality theory further advances our understanding by analyzing how multiple social categories, race, gender, class, and more interact to produce layered and overlapping systems of disadvantage and privilege. Other critical perspectives, including feminist theory and postmodern critiques, challenge traditional paradigms by emphasizing reflexivity, power relations, and the diversity of experiences within stratified societies. We will critically engage with these theories, assess empirical research, and investigate their applications to contemporary social issues. Building on our understanding of advanced theoretical frameworks, we now turn to their application in the empirical study of economic inequality, one of the most pressing and visible forms of social stratification. Economic inequality refers to the uneven distribution of income, wealth, and access to resources, which profoundly shapes individuals' life chances and social positions. Functionalist perspective view economic inequality as a motivator for productivity and societal efficiency, arguing that differential rewards encourage talent development and hard work. However, this perspective often overlooks structural barriers that prevent equitable opportunity. In contrast, Marxist theory emphasizes how capitalism inherently produces and reproduces wealth disparities through the ownership of means of production and exploitation of labor. Contemporary research explores how class relations influence access to capital and economic mobility. Weberian analysis extends the examination by investigating how economic status intersects with social prestige and political power, providing a multidimensional view of inequality. Intersectionality brings attention to how economic disparities are compounded by race, gender, and other social identities, revealing patterns of systematic exclusion and privilege. Recent empirical studies use quantitative data, such as income distribution metrics and wealth concentration analysis, to map the scale and trends of economic inequality globally and within Europe. Through this combined theoretical and empirical lens, sociologists deepen the understanding of economic stratification's complexities and explore pathways toward greater social justice. Next, we explore two critical dimensions of economic inequality: poverty and social mobility. Poverty represents the most extreme form of economic deprivation, where individuals lack sufficient resources to meet basic needs. Sociological research investigates both absolute poverty, severe lack of basic necessities, and relative poverty, which measures inequality in relation to societal standards. Research leverages diverse approaches to analyze poverty's causes, persistence, and social consequences. Structural theories point to systemic factors like labor markets, education access, and welfare policies, while cultural theories examine norms and behaviors associated with poverty. Social mobility studies focus on the ability of individuals or groups to move within or between social strata over time. Upward mobility offers routes out of poverty, while downward mobility reveals vulnerabilities. Research employs longitudinal data, intergenerational studies, and statistical modeling to assess mobility patterns and barriers. Findings often reveal the persistence of inequality due to factors such as educational disparities, discrimination, and neighborhood effects. The concept of the mobility trap highlights structural impediments that limit progress despite individual efforts, prompting sociologists to call for policy reforms addressing these systemic hurdles. European focused studies analyze how social policies, labor market institutions, and welfare systems influence poverty levels and mobility rates across different countries. Next, we explore how globalization and public policies influence economic inequality on both global and European scales. Globalization, the increasing interconnectedness of economies, cultures, and populations, has transformed labor markets, capital flows, and social relations worldwide. Research reveals that globalization has mixed effects on inequality. On one hand, it has created new economic opportunities and lifted some populations out of poverty, especially in developing regions. On the other hand, it has amplified economic disparities within and between countries by favoring capital owners and skilled workers, while low skilled labor often faces downward pressure. European Union policies, national welfare regimes, and labor market institutions play critical roles in mediating these impacts. The social democratic models in Nordic countries exemplify how strong welfare provisions can mitigate inequality, whereas more liberal models show wider disparities. Sociological research emphasizes the importance of redistributive policies such as progressive taxation, social security, universal healthcare, and education access in reducing economic stratification. Contemporary debates focus on balancing economic competitiveness with social equity, addressing precarity in gig economies and the implications of digitalization and automation. We will delve deeper into empirical studies assessing these dynamics, comparing policy outcomes across European nations, and evaluating innovative interventions aimed at promoting social inclusion. Understanding globalization's influence and policymaking response is essential for crafting effective solutions to persistent and emerging economic inequalities. Beyond economic resources, social inequality is also deeply woven into cultural capital and social identities, shaping individuals' access to opportunities and social mobility. Cultural capital, a concept developed by Pierre Bourdieu, refers to non economic assets such as education, skills, tastes, languages, and cultural knowledge that confer social advantages. Possession of cultural capital influences social inclusion or exclusion, educational attainment, and occupational success, thereby reproducing inequality across generations. Social inequality, encompassing race, ethnicity, gender, religion, and other group affiliations, intersects with cultural capital to affect how individuals are perceived and treated in society. Research shows how dominant cultural norms can marginalize minority identities, reinforcing systemic disparities and limiting access to power and prestige. Intersectional approaches examine how overlapping social identities compound experiences of discrimination or privilege, highlighting the complexity of social inequality. In the European context, sociological studies analyze how cultural capital and identity politics shape school achievement gaps, labor market outcomes, and political participation. Understanding these cultural dimensions is critical for comprehensive analysis of stratification and for designing effective social policies. Next, we explore how individuals and groups organize collective action and social movements to challenge and transform social inequalities and stratification systems. Collective action refers to the efforts by people with shared interests to influence social, political, or economic change. Social movements are sustained, organized campaigns aiming for structural change, often addressing inequalities. Sociological research examines the origins, dynamics, and outcomes of social movements, focusing on factors such as resource mobilization, political opportunities, identity formation, and framing processes. Historical and contemporary movements like labor unions, civil rights, feminist environmental, and anti globalization movements illustrate diverse strategies and impacts. In the European context, movements addressing economic inequality, migration rights, and anti racism activism reflect changing social landscapes and political challenges. Researchers also analyze the role of digital technologies and social media in mobilizing support and shaping narratives. Understanding collective action enriches our comprehension of how societies contest inequality, negotiate power, and envision justice. Next, we examine the cutting edge research methodologies sociologists use to study social inequality and the dynamics of collective action. Quantitative methods such as large scale surveys, longitudinal panel studies, and administrative data analysis enable researchers to measure income distribution, social mobility, and participation rates in social movements across populations. Advances in computational social science now allow for the analysis of big data from social media platforms, providing insights into mobilization patterns, discourse framing, and network structures in real time. Qualitative methods, including in depth interviews, ethnographies, and participant observation, remain essential for understanding individuals' lived experiences of inequality and the meanings behind collective action. Mixed methods research combines the strength of quantitative and qualitative approaches, offering a holistic view of social phenomena. Innovations such as experimental and quasi-experimental designs help establish causal relationships between social policies and changes in inequality or movement success. Ethical considerations, transparency in data collection, and reflexivity are central to conducting responsible and credible sociological research today. Throughout this series, we will explore these methodologies in detail, equipping you with the tools to critically engage with and conduct empirical research on social inequality. Next, we turn to empirical case studies that illuminate how social inequality and stratification manifest across diverse European contexts. Case studies provide concrete examples that link theory or research methods to real world social dynamics, helping us understand localized and national level variations. For example, research in Scandinavian countries highlights how comprehensive welfare systems and social democratic policies contribute to relatively low levels of economic inequality and strong social mobility. In contrast, studies from Southern and Eastern Europe reveal persistent economic disparities, limited social protection, and challenges related to labor market segmentation and informal economies. Ethnographic studies in urban centers like London, Paris, and Berlin uncover how cultural capital and identity intersect with ethnic and class stratification, influencing access to housing, education, and employment. Research on migrant populations within Europe examines integration policies, experiences of discrimination, and transnational ties, revealing complex patterns of inclusion and exclusion. These cases demonstrate the importance of context sensitive approaches in sociological research while emphasizing common patterns of inequality rooted in structural and cultural factors. By analyzing these empirical studies, we gain deeper insights into the multifaceted realities of social stratification in Europe. Next, we will explore policy implications and social interventions aimed at reducing inequality and promoting social justice. After exploring theories, empirical research, and case studies, we now examine the crucial areas of policy responses and social interventions aimed at reducing social inequality. Sociological research informs policy by identifying how structural and cultural factors create and sustain inequalities, helping to design targeted interventions. Redistributive policies such as progressive taxation, social welfare programs, universal healthcare, and education equity initiatives have proven effective in mitigating economic disparities. Labor market regulations, minimum wage laws, and anti discrimination policies also play significant roles in promoting fairness and inclusion. In Europe, social democratic welfare models in Scandinavian countries offer valuable lessons on combining economic growth with social equality. Community-based interventions and grassroots movements. Community-based interventions and grassroots movements are essential complements addressing cultural and identity-based exclusion. Policy research increasingly focuses on evaluating program effectiveness and unintended consequences using mixed methods and experimental designs. Understanding these interventions equips researchers and practitioners to advocate for informed and equitable social change. Thank you for joining.